Our story begins in the breathtaking highlands of Kenya, where rolling hills and lush valleys stretch as far as the eye can see. In a small, close-knit village called Thiori, nestled near Nyeri, around the year 1920, life moved to the rhythm of the seasons and the land. It was here that Dedan Kimathi Wachuri was born into the Gikuyu community. Raised by his devoted mother after his father's untimely death, Kimathi grew up surrounded by the warmth and strength of family. From a young age, Kimathi witnessed the painful loss of ancestral lands to British settlers. The harsh realities of colonial rule were ever present, casting a long shadow over daily life. He spent his days herding goats across the hills, listening intently as elders recounted stories of a proud past and a time before foreign rule. Through these tales, he learned about the injustices his people endured: forced labor, heavy taxes, and the steady shrinking of their farmlands. These early experiences planted powerful seeds of defiance and hope in his young mind, shaping his sense of justice and belonging. Kimathi began to question why his people, the rightful stewards of the land, were treated as outsiders in their own homeland, forced to watch as their heritage was fenced off and controlled by others. Growing up in the shadow of majestic Mount Kenya, he developed a deep spiritual connection to the forests and rivers, places that would later become his sanctuary and stronghold. For Kimathi, the land was more than just a home. It was the very essence of his identity, a living link to his ancestors and his people's future. He learned the ways of the forest, how to move silently, find food, and read the signs of nature. These skills, passed down through generations, would prove invaluable in the years to come. The boy from Thiori was quietly absorbing the world around him, his eyes open to both its beauty and its injustices, unknowingly preparing for a destiny that will place him at the very heart of Kenya's fight for freedom. Kimathi's early life was a harsh but invaluable education in inequality, resilience, and the enduring spirit of his people. The environment of colonial Kenya, with its daily struggles and quiet acts of resistance, shaped every aspect of his upbringing, forging his character and resolve. Even as a child, he was unknowingly preparing to become a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope for generations to come. Despite immense hardship and the daily struggles of rural life, Kimathi's mother made a bold decision. She sent him to a local missionary school. For a Gikuyu boy at that time, this was a rare and precious opportunity, one that many in his community could only dream of. Kimathi quickly distinguished himself among his peers. He excelled in English and debate, eagerly learning to read and write, and showing a natural curiosity for the world beyond his village. But for Kimathi, school was more than just academics. It was a profound awakening. The classroom became a window to new possibilities and a place where his mind could roam free. Here, he encountered powerful new ideas about justice, equality, and freedom. Yet he was also confronted with the colonial message that European culture and values were superior to his own. This contradiction between what he was taught and what he felt in his heart fueled a growing sense of injustice. It sharpened his critical thinking and made him question the world around him. Seeking a deeper connection to his roots, Kimathi later attended a Gikuyu independent school. Here, African history, culture, and pride were at the center of learning, not pushed to the margins. Surrounded by passionate classmates who also dreamed of a free Kenya, Kimathi's political consciousness blossomed. He found a sense of belonging and purpose among those who shared his hopes. In this environment, his leadership qualities began to emerge. He inspired others, and his voice carried weight in discussions about the future. Although his formal education ended earlier than he wished, Kimathi became a voracious reader. He was drawn to stories of rebellion and resistance from around the world, seeking inspiration and guidance. Through these stories, he realized that Kenya's struggle was not isolated. It was part of a much larger, global fight against colonialism and oppression. Kimathi learned that both the pen and the sword could be powerful weapons for freedom. Knowledge and action, he saw, must go hand in hand. His education, both formal and self-taught, gave him the tools to question, to challenge, and ultimately to resist the colonial system. Now, Kimathi stood as a young man armed not just with ideas, but with a deep sense of purpose and the determination to fight for his people's freedom. As a young man, Kimathi worked as a teacher, a clerk, and even served briefly in the colonial army. Yet, at every turn, he found himself at odds with the authorities. His independent mind and fierce sense of justice made it impossible for him to simply follow orders or accept the injustices he witnessed around him. Kimathi's rebellious spirit set him apart. He refused to be silenced or to fit into the rigid colonial system that demanded obedience and submission from Africans. Eventually, his defiance led to his dismissal from the army. This experience convinced him that real change would never come through cooperation with the colonial regime. Only direct, determined action could bring about true freedom. By the late 1940s, political groups like the Kenya African Union were rising up, demanding rights and representation for Africans. But despite their efforts, progress was painfully slow, and the colonial government continued to ignore their pleas. Frustrated but undeterred, Kimathi became a passionate activist. He traveled tirelessly from village to village, speaking to ordinary people, urging them to stand up for their rights and to join the growing movement for change. As the years passed and hopes for peaceful reform faded, Kimathi and others realized that stronger, more radical measures were needed. The time for talk was over. In secret gatherings deep in the forests and hidden rooms, they organized themselves, taking powerful oaths of unity and loyalty. They swore to fight for Ithaka na Wiyathi, land and freedom, no matter the cost. This was the birth of the Mau Mau movement, a turning point in Kenya's struggle for independence. For Kimathi, this was more than a cause. It was a calling that would define the rest of his life. He took the sacred oath, left behind his old life, and disappeared into the dense forests of Mount Kenya and the Aberdares, ready to fight for his people's future. Kimathi was no longer just an activist. He had become a freedom fighter, willing to risk everything for liberation. The forest became his fortress, his home, and his battlefield, a place where he and his comrades could plan, train, and launch their struggle. Now, Kimathi was ready to lead a determined guerrilla war against the might of the British Empire, inspiring others to join the fight for Kenya's freedom. Deep in the Aberdare forests, Kimathi's leadership quickly set him apart. He established a disciplined, military-style command, coordinating scattered fighter groups. Life in the forest was harsh. Danger from soldiers, wild animals, hunger, and cold. Kimathi kept morale high, creating a parallel government with its own courts and records. He used his knowledge of the land to launch surprise attacks, making the fighters elusive and feared. The British poured resources into crushing the rebellion, but Kimathi's army proved resilient. He became a symbol of African resistance, often seen in a leopard skin coat and dreadlocks. His letters and orders, full of revolutionary fire, inspired his followers. Kimathi was the heart and soul of the rebellion, keeping hope alive in the darkest times. As leader of the Land and Freedom Army, Kimathi became the most wanted man in Kenya. The British put a bounty on his head and launched a propaganda campaign to demonize him. Posters warned against supporting him, but he became a legend, both feared and admired. Kimathi moved constantly, evading capture with the help of a vast network of sympathizers. His elusiveness only added to his myth. For many Kenyans, he was a hero, the embodiment of hope and defiance. While political leaders like Jomo Kenyatta were imprisoned, Kimathi fought on in the field. He became more than a man. He was an idea, a symbol of refusal to accept colonial rule. The longer he remained free, the more he inspired others. The British knew capturing him was key to breaking the rebellion spirit. His freedom was a public reminder of colonial failure to control Kenya. The hunt for Kimathi became the central drama of the Mau Mau emergency. His legend grew with every day he evaded capture. Behind the revolutionary leader was a devoted husband and father. Kimathi's wife, Mukami, was his partner in struggle, strong, resilient, and unwavering in her support. Their love endured separation and constant danger, as Mukami often lived in hiding and risked her life to support him. Kimathi sacrificed the joys of family life for the cause, missing his children's childhoods. Mukami faced arrest, imprisonment, and harsh interrogations, but never betrayed him. She was a silent warrior, enduring immense hardship for the dream of freedom. Their letters reveal Kimathi's tenderness and longing for his family. These personal sacrifices highlight the human cost of war. Mukami's courage is an essential part of Kimathi's legacy. Their story reminds us that the fight for freedom was deeply personal. Kimathi's dream was for a better world for his family and all Kenyans. By 1956, the Land and Freedom Army was weakened, cut off from supplies and support. Kimathi's group was isolated and starving as colonial forces closed in. On October 21, 1956, he was ambushed, shot, and captured by a home guard. His capture was a triumph for the colonial government and a blow to the rebellion. Kimathi was hospitalized under heavy guard. Photos of his capture were widely published. His trial was a public spectacle, with the outcome predetermined. Charged with possession of a firearm, he defended himself as a freedom fighter, not a criminal. The court saw him as a terrorist and sentenced him to death by hanging. The verdict shocked Kenya, but the colonial government believed it would end the rebellion. Instead, Kimathi's trial elevated him to the status of national martyr. His dignity in court inspired many. The fight for independence was far from over. On February 18, 1957, Dedan Kimathi was executed at Committee Prison, defiant to the end. He told his wife his blood would water the tree of independence. The British buried him in an unmarked grave, hoping to erase his memory. For decades, the grave's location remained a painful mystery. Kimathi's death did not end the struggle. It fueled it. He became a martyr, his sacrifice a rallying point for the independence movement. The hidden grave became a symbol of unresolved injustice. For his family, the search for his grave was a lifelong mission. Kimathi's story lived on, refusing to be buried by history. After independence in 1963, Kimathi's legacy only grew. Once a controversial rebel, he became a celebrated national hero. Streets, schools, and a university bear his name. His story is told in books and songs. In 2007, a bronze statue was erected in Nairobi, honoring his role in Kenya's history. Kimathi is remembered as the spirit of resistance and the dreamer of a just Kenya. The search for his grave continues, a final act of decolonization and closure. His journey from village boy to national icon is a story of courage and sacrifice. Kimathi's legacy is not just in monuments, but in the spirit of an independent nation. He is the field marshal who never surrendered, the martyr whose blood watered the tree of freedom. His story challenges Kenya to keep striving for justice and true sovereignty.